So we're vlogging again about the sweater that I am working on, the sweater design for January 2020. The fading of the colors into each other is just starting. So one of the things I wanted to do was to pop on and show you how it is looking. All right, so here's the back of this. Here is sort of the back of the sweater. This would be sort of the center back of the neck. And you can see I'm decreasing here to drop the shoulders down. I just worked the last decrease. So the shoulders drop by about 1.5 inches. And then it will continue over to the final width. And then, as I said, I've just started fading the colors together. So I started with the red. The red lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. And actually probably could have gone a little longer on the red. And to be honest, I haven't figured out about the sleeve colors yet, so anyway. But I've just started combining the red and the purple. And let's see if you can really see. I think you can kind of see in here. There's this row right here that's purple. Looks a little bit different, but not much. So these are going to fade into each other really well. I just had worked 2 rows of the purple. Now I'm about to work 4 rows of the purple. Then I'll finish up with 2 rows of the red and then switch entirely to the purple. So when you get close up, you can definitely see that purple row, but it's very subtle. And of course, from far away, you can't observe anything at all. So we are making progress. Not as fast maybe as I want, because I am working on gift knitting. It is the season for gift knitting. But things are underway. So what I'm going to be doing at this point, like I said, I'm going to fade the colors into each other. Then I'm going to finish out with the purple to the full width that this is supposed to be. And when I get to that width, I'm going to bind off stitches for the armhole. At that point, I'm going to put this, what's over here, on waste yarn. I'm going to pull out the provisional cast on, and I'm going to knit the other half of the back. Once that's done, I can make sure that both halves are even and the colors are faded together in the same way and weigh out the yarn and things like that. Then I'll come back to, it doesn't really matter which sides, I may just stick with the side that I'm on. So after I've bound off stitches for the armhole, I'll have, so much sweater body left. I'll cast on stitches for the opposite side of the armhole, because again, this is a drop shoulder, so there's no armhole shaping, and then work around the front. So we'll cast on stitches so that it'll be the same length at the shoulder, and then I'll work with shaping a neckline of some kind. I'm still thinking about, what exactly the front of the sweater is going to look like. There's definitely going to be some neck shaping. I do want it to have sort of an open front that you could perhaps optionally add maybe toggle buttons to if you wanted to. Maybe a sash. You could belt your sweater, belt your cardigan. And then I do want some kind of decorative trim, not a traditional rib on the front bands or the neckline. I think I said previously I was thinking about I-cord of some sort, applied I-cord maybe. So all of that is still being worked out, but I am making good progress, and so far the shaping is all working out the way that I had planned, and I would say expected, but I sometimes expected is too strong a word. I planned for it. I hope it's going to work out, but I always go into things with doubts, especially if there's an odd construction. But so far so good. As I said, the red yarn lasted longer than I thought that it would, which is actually a good sign. It gives me a little bit more flexibility in how much of each color to use for each section. I think that's a big challenge is going to be making recommendations for yarn usage in other sizes. That's definitely going to be tricky, telling people how much of each yarn to use before switching to the next if they're fading colors into each other. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's sort of the last worry is, you know, first put the actual pattern together, and then that would be sort of one of the final considerations. And then the other thing is that this, I'm sure you have noticed if you've watched the previous vlogs, I did pick out a name for this pattern. And actually it's going to be sort of an ongoing theme in 2020. All of my pattern names, I have decided, are going to be a word or a turn of phrase or something along those lines from a song, kind of like Cellophane Flowers is from Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. This will be all my indie patterns because patterns published by a third party, a lot of times they'll change the name, and I don't have any control over that, so it'll only be for indie patterns. I've kind of gotten off track here. So what I was going to say is that this sweater is going to be called Humo Amargo. It means bitter smoke, which I thought was nice for the sort of black yarns that I'm using for the pattern. So I'm still working on the sample. I don't really have any major grading to do right now. I don't have any major math that I need to be doing until I start working on the fronts. So that's good. It is some relatively easy knitting, just stopping to measure, and like I said, fading the colors together. So hopefully, you know, with the holidays coming up, I'll have more time to work on it. And then the other thing I am going to be doing, which I had already started a teensy bit of, is putting the actual pattern together. So while I am knitting the sample, I'm also starting to put the pattern together, because if I wait until the end, I will forget things that I have done. And there's, you know, there's a certain amount of reading of your knitting you can do, but not everything. There's also a certain amount of flubbing that can go on. Like, you know, in my sample, I use a rate of decreases, and then, you know, once it's done, realize something different would be a slight improvement. I will tweak that without reknitting the entire sample. But it is important. I don't, you know, other designers do things different ways, but I will always start working on my pattern during the process of sample knitting. So I'll show you a little bit of the pattern writing process. All right, so I do have a template that I use for all of my patterns. Seems to change up every couple of years, but for now, I've been using the same one for at least a few years. You can see that the template that I have saved is from, let's see, must have been January 2019, when I published the Uvia fingerless mitts. And the picture I'm just leaving in there for now, because if I take it out, then the spacing is going to get all screwy, and then I'll just have to go back and fix it. So we leave it in there for now until we have appropriate photos. You can see I have my title already in there. This is always the last thing that I do. I never have any idea what to write here, and I don't even know why we force ourselves to write anything, because, you know, you're not even going to read this until after you've bought the patterns. Although, to be fair, I usually do copy a lot of this into my pattern description on Ravelry, but still, let's face it, most of your decision making for your pattern purchases is based on the photos, not whatever flowery language we put here, but it seems to be the thing to do. So I really haven't started putting much in here yet, just a few things that I already know, like the needle size. Certainly don't want to forget that. Put the wrong one in there. Let's pull this down where it belongs. So I do have some of this information. I haven't put it in here yet. So what I do is I set it up so it creates this string of text right here. And you can see that's already set up like it would be in the pattern. So that's the smallest size, the next 3 in parentheses, and then the next 4 in brackets. And so I'll set the pattern up so that it will take the information from here and pop it into the pattern and then will automatically update if I make changes. And I just haven't started really going into that yet. But here I have my target sizes from 34 to 62. That's the finished measurement to be worn with probably 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. Did I write anything? No. You know, so we want this to be loose and casual, not too big, maybe 4 to 6 inches. I'll keep thinking on it. So for me, I'm knitting the size small sample in a 38. That would give, you know, usually I model myself, and that'll give me 3 or 4 inches of positive ease. So that'll probably be the recommendation, 4 to 6 inches. So anyway, I will eventually put all these numbers directly into the pattern. I have not started doing that yet, mostly because when, you know, for example, if I decide I need some different numbers in here, I might insert a row, and when I do that, all of this shifts down and all the numbers get screwed up, and then I have to go back and change them. So at this point, I'm kind of just waiting until I've got a lot more of this stuff done, so that I don't create extra work for myself. But I have started putting in some of the basics, the abbreviations. I know I'm going to have to put in some instructions for the Latvian braid that we're starting with. Of course, I won't have any charts this time. There will be eventually a schematic. So these are some things that I'm going to be getting started on soon, even though the sample hasn't made too much progress, because I do want to hopefully get some preview knitters for this. And in order to give people a good amount of time to at least get started on their sweaters, before I want to publish the pattern, I'm going to have to be doing that soon. So that's another reason I'm getting started. And we shall see how it goes. Alright, so I apologize for the lousy lighting today. It is cloudy and my children have a snow day, even though we got about 1 inch or less of snow. But I've reached a crucial point in the sample knitting process, so I wanted to take a few minutes to pop on and show it off. So I have finished knitting 1/2 of the back. Let's turn it over here. So, all right, so this point here, this is the center of the back neck, and then you can see it slopes down to the shoulder. And I have bound off for the armhole on this side. So what I'm going to do is put these stitches on scrap yarn, and then I need to pull out my provisional cast on and start knitting in the other direction. So the first thing is that every time I knit a provisional cast on, or a crochet provisional cast on, the crochet chain never zips open like it's supposed to. So I'm not sure what to expect there. So see if that works like it's supposed to. Then the other issue is you can see, a bit closer here, that next to the crochet provisional cast on, I did the Vickle braid on this side, and you can see, just looking at it this way, that these stitches along the edge are very loose. And I don't know if they're going to be equally loose on the other side, which would be kind of like, okay, great, a design element, or if they are not, and then I'm going to have to figure out a way to tighten them up better on this side. It should be easier to tighten them up a little bit after I've pulled out the provisional cast on and started working in the other direction if necessary, but let's see how it goes. Okay, it wasn't as easy as I had hoped, but we now have, the lighting is terrible. Getting washed out. Now it is on the needles. I have all of my stitches, I think. And so now what I'm going to do is work in the opposite direction. trying to decide what I might do. I've got the, I know this is so dark. You can see almost the braid. And I'm thinking about adding a second one that goes in the opposite direction, just to make that stand out a little bit more on the back, and then to continue working the right side like the left. And that's where we're going to be going from here. Wish me luck.